So for the people who don't know me, my name is Mark Sage. I'm the Executive Director of the Augmented Reality for Enterprise Alliance, or for the ARIA for short. I'm going to talk to you about what the ARIA does, what's happening in the enterprise AR ecosystem at the moment, okay, what we're seeing, what the organizations are doing, and kind of talk about the potential for the future. So the talk, fulfilling the potential of enterprise AR, or what's happening in the enterprise AR ecosystem. So before I go into too much detail about the ecosystem, let's talk about what the benefits are of enterprise AR. We've seen lots of talks today, some of them being focused on enterprise, some of them on design and all sorts of different things. But at a very high level, organizations at the moment in a global environment need to perform at peak performance, okay? They need to be able to get the bottom line, they need to make a real serious improvement. So what AR can do for these organizations is allow the most relevant, latest contextual information to be at the hands or the eyes of the workers when they need it. I've been working with some enterprises where they will go off and walk and find a drawer and open up a drawer and look at some diagrams and then go back and carry on doing some work. The amount of time that's wasted is unbelievable. So make sure there's relevant data. They can also have the expert with them all the time, okay? Talk remote assistants and things like that. So being able to have someone that you can speak to, someone who can take you through the different use cases and problems with you all the time is another massive saving. The use case, or the problem you often get is they have to fly around the world to go and fix these problems. So AR allows us to have the experts with them there and then. And then real-time compliance. We'll talk about some of the members of the area, but they're in regulated industries. So being able to do a task, that task is kind of measured, it's captured, and can be stored, is a great saving. Whereas I've again seen, and I won't talk about the company, but someone will look at a piece of paper, they'll walk over, do the fix, come back with a stamp, rubber stamp that, and then a checker will come along with a different rubber stamp, make sure it's all done, go back and rubber stamp it. And this even happens now in 2017. So to go with the increased performance is about increasing efficiency. Reducing time, especially on complex or tasks that doesn't happen very often. One of our members make those big aircraft carriers. They make one every 7 years. So some of these tasks do not happen that often. So being able to reduce the time it takes them to recall and to rework those tasks, again, is another great saving. Minimizing errors, getting it right first time, and lowering costs. So you can see there are some substantial savings that organizations can make and are making using AR. So a little bit about what the enterprise AR ecosystem looks like at the moment. And this reflects the ARIA membership. So we have enterprises, the people buying and deploying AR solutions. And we're lucky enough in the area to have organizations like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Newport News Shipbuilding, Huawei, Bosch, a number of organizations that are actually deploying and working on AR solutions now. We have even a bigger group of providers of AR solutions, software, hardware, seen a growth of those kind of technologies that are supporting AR, gesture control, and things like that. So, the likes of PTC and Upskill and Scope AR, just to name a few, are ARIA members as well. And we believe, and it's important for the ecosystem, that we work with the non-commercial organizations, universities, public research institutes, government agencies, that quite often lead in the edge of thinking in AR, and we've seen lots of examples today. But not only that, they have the capability to do testing of different devices and kind of work within the ecosystem to support everybody. So this is kind of reflection of what the ecosystem looks like, but also the area setup. So it's all those great savings, Mark, and why isn't it, truly deployed and everyone's using enterprise AR and it's all great? Well, it's early. The technology is still early. And speaking to some of the enterprises, trying to identify some of the actual problems or the challenges. So there's not really enough, and we've been working on this, and I know there's more and more information, but enough neutral, relevant information for decision makers to make informed decisions. Okay? Enterprises have got lots of other potential technologies that are being talked to them all the time. IoT, VR, Enterprise 4.0, all these different technologies. So AR needs to be able to stand by itself and show real benefits. Big organizations often lack confidence. The time it takes them to change from what they're doing now into a new technology is long, decision-making processes are long and stuff like that. And the other thing that's still very difficult in this organization, I'll talk about some of the work we've been doing, is to understand the ROI with this new technology. What is that return on investment? How much does it cost? And more importantly, how much money am I going to save? So if enterprise like that, what does it mean to the providers? Well, it's difficult for them to have those conversations with the enterprises. The enterprise is still not aware of AR technology, so the sales cycle are quite long. They have to explain all the benefits, and that's why it's taken a while still for enterprises to buy into it. I think also there's a lack of understanding of what use cases and what the customer requirements are. And again, the area, and I'll come to that, we're doing some work on that. So, there's some challenges. And what I often say is that the ecosystem, the curry ecosystem, is irregular, okay, which is a horrible word, but I couldn't think of anything better, for the reasons I explained. But I have to say, and there's been lots of really interesting kind of use cases and case studies here. We are moving very quickly, and in fact, I believe we're now into that developing or developed ecosystem. And why is that? How can I stand up and say that? So there's a couple of reasons. One, I'm seeing in lots of large organizations, they are beginning to centralize their AR capability or kind of strategy. I've spoken to a number of companies that said, Mark, we found in our business units and within our innovation teams, we had up to 40 different AR projects. But they were all being done separately, all in their little pockets and things like that. And that doesn't help the organization. So we're seeing the thinking and the strategy centralized around the CTO or CEO office or the innovation kind of team. So there's an understanding and the language is being shared and people understand the benefits of AR, number one. Number two is trying to get those case studies or examples of where AR is bringing some real benefit. And for the people that who listened to Michael Campbell's from PTC talk this morning, and they talked about the paper that Jim had done with Harvard Business Review, and I've got a slide on that as well. What he didn't talk about was some real savings made in there. He talked about the different use cases, but some real savings, so I highlight some of those. So those two things, an understanding and bringing a strategy focused in the organization and some case studies and examples of real savings being made shows that we're in that developing ecosystem, but there's still quite a bit to do. As things mature, and we'll talk about what we're doing to try and make that ideal ecosystem, things are going to get a lot better. So for this enterprise ecosystem to work, we've all got to work together. And I have this little saying, which I hopefully will get it right, but if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's the kind of situation we're in at the moment. There's a huge opportunity for enterprise AR, but we've kind of got to do it together. Even when you look at the different solutions to provide AR, they're often, you have to get content out of systems, you have to get it in the right format so it's easy to use. You have to get the hardware, you have to get the software, you have to get the security and safety. So there's lots of different component parts, and often one organization can't do that. So by working together as an ecosystem, we can really benefit everybody. So let me talk a little bit more about the ARIA. So we're the only global membership-funded non-profit alliance dedicated to helping accelerate enterprise AR. So we only focus on that space. We don't focus on VR, we don't focus on B2C stuff, and it's all about creating or supporting the growth of this comprehensive ecosystem, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means in a minute. It's been going for over 3 years now, and it started when a bunch of people who worked for organizations got together at kind of events like this, not at this one, but at similar kind of events, and been talking about, well, we're kind of invested in AR. You can imagine Boeing, who's been doing it for years and years, they were having another go at really investing in it. So as those companies and individuals began to talk, they kind of knew that they needed to understand a little bit more about what was going on, what was available, what could you do, and how can you do it? And back to that important question, what's the return on investment? And actually, they found that they wanted to work together, to innovate, to build partnerships, to actually come together for that long-term adoption of AR. Again, I'm back to people need to work together in this ecosystem. And I know, and I've met, I don't know if Jim's in here, but one of the founders of the ARIA's here again today, which is really nice to see. So at the highest level, we kind of offer this free and open exchange of good practices, lessons learned, technology insights. It was about creating that thought leadership, neutral information that enterprises need to make informed decisions. And we're all about the long-term AR technology creating long-term benefit. I've been an old git, have lived through lots of different technologies that have come, fizzed really brightly and then just fizzled out. Okay, so what the ARIA is trying to do is make sure that we have a long-term and stable ecosystem that's benefiting everybody. Here's a quick blast of our members. What I can say is we had, talked about some of the big providers, but we've also created a startup package. So we're trying to help new organizations coming into the enterprise AR ecosystem, providing them with the benefits, with the partnerships, with the, connecting to these other organizations. And we're across the world. I say that we're about 60% in the US, about 40% in Europe. We have organizations in China, Australia, Mexico. So my 40-60 doesn't work, I know, but you kind of get the idea. Okay, Mark, so what you're talking about, what's actually happening? What are the kind of things that you're doing? So we talked about that thought leadership piece, okay? You need to create, collect, and curate the latest AR information. And I don't mean blog articles or news stories. There's plenty of organizations doing that. But it's the kind of use cases. What problems can be solved by using AR? Case studies, some examples of those use cases being solved. What technologies are needed? What's the return on investment? So collecting all that information. And when I say the marketplace down there, for organizations or enterprises to be able to go and get all this information relevant to what the problems they're trying to solve, and be able to consume it very quickly. What we'll also do is the ARIA providers, will make contact with those enterprises, so very quickly these enterprises can move forward. So thought leadership, market networking, events like this. We're actually running in February, if anyone's interested, a workshop in Chicago. And I'm very careful to call it a workshop because we're very much about engaging with enterprises to talk about things like requirements, safety, security. I'll talk about that on the next slide. We don't run events like this, presentations, but it's very focused on the real kind of nitty-gritty. We support other events and things like that, and there's also physical and virtual get-togethers. Educate. Going back to this piece about we don't want AR to be a kind of a fizzling, burning bright and gone. We really want it to be long-term, so we're looking at making sure there's not a skills gap. Working with educational organizations to put courses on AR, maybe to have a jobs board where enterprises can post jobs and people who are interested in this space can apply for jobs or put their CVs and things like that. Then finally, as I talked about that developing ecosystem, we've moved from the Irregular, which is about sharing information, to developing ecosystem. What we're seeing, or what we need to do, is reduce the barriers to adoption. So this has kind of been the big push of the ARIA in the latter part of 2017 and early 2018. And what does that mean? Well, we've set up a number of committees, which is a very English word, but groups of people, members, talking and working on specific problem or barriers to adoption. So the first one's requirements. Wouldn't it be great if we had a single set of AR hardware and software requirements that the enterprises agree with? Okay, it would be great that the enterprises can pick them up and do RFIs and RFPs. The provider section can look at it and, develop their roadmaps and things like that. And it helps support interoperability. It helps having a kind of a clear goal where we want to be. And we've started that. Is it finished yet? No, of course not. We're still working on it. But the initial project started in March is with the DMDII based in Chicago, Lockheed Martin, Caterpillar, and Procter & Gamble. We'll do another iteration of that, and in February, we'll talk about the latest kind of bit. So requirements are something really important. Safety. Unless you're involved in in the enterprise organization, you're not really thinking about safety in AR. But believe you me, big enterprises do worry about health and safety. So what we'd like to do, and we are doing, is look at the actual and potential problems in safety. Let's get them documented. Let's look at potential solutions. Let's talk to the health and safety executive or whatever those organizations are about AR, educate them, tell them that there isn't a problem, or provide solutions for those safety problems. Last week, and unfortunately it's not on this slide because I was a good boy and handed it in nice and early, but we kicked off a security committee. So we're looking at the security issues, cyber security issues, particularly in wearables. Again, not something a lot of people are thinking about, but when you're deploying an enterprise, the enterprise IT people will be all over you like a rash. So, what can we do now to start thinking about those, putting models in place and protocols in place? And then we have a marketing committee, which is about promoting the ecosystem, the members, the area itself. So kind of lots of work that people aren't thinking about, but actually if we move forward really quickly on those, that breaks down those barriers to adoption. This is the slide I was talking about that Michael Campbell, the PTC guys, we were a big supporter. We promoted the presentation quite well. But what I don't think Michael did this morning was talk about some of those actual savings, the percentages. Inspection final sign-off. Newport News is a member of ours, 96%, from 36 hours to 90 minutes. That's huge. It's huge. And they're all big numbers. So, one of the things that we've been promoting is there's actual savings to be made. And the case study in the paper goes into more detail, but that's some real substantial stuff. One of the things we think is really important is the use cases or the problem statements. We need to educate the marketplace, so we're doing lots of work on that. They will be updated in March, but we've got 19 different use cases, so that's 19 different problems potentially that can be solved within an enterprise. Of course, they're not all relevant to all enterprises, but at least there's somewhere people can go and find out and educate themselves. So this is just a quick screenshot of some of them, and as I say, we'll be developing them over a period of time. Now finally, on the committees bit, there was a research committee, and I didn't really talk about that, so I'm going to talk about that now. One of the benefits of being an ARIA member is that you can make proposals for research, which is covered within your membership fees. Very simple. We ask all the members what they would like to research. Then they do a short presentation or a little pitch, and then all the ARIA members vote on it. So the first one, the kind of winner, if you like, was about wearable security, hence why we've spun out a security committee. A couple of reports just for the members on risks in management and, sorry if I just go back there, security framework and test protocol. It really helps the members that they can take this information, depending if they're an enterprise, they can share it with their enterprise IT bits. If they're a provider, they can start having those conversations. But as you may have seen with some of the quotes, our members have found it very useful. The second one, and again, apologies, I've mentioned it a few times, just before Christmas, we launched, or I sent out to the members, an enterprise AR ROI calculator. It's an Excel spreadsheet, but we've spent a lot of time speaking to the members and working with organizations to understand ROI, to have a model that companies can go through, enterprises can go through, or providers can work with enterprises to go through, to think about the kind of savings you can make using AR. Get that documented and plop out an ROI figure at the end of it. It's not perfect and more work's going to be needed, but at least there's something, and ideally we're going to bring that online, we're going to do more work to improve it, but the ecosystem need that kind of information. Supporting that, it's a really good best practice report, and I've learned a lot by reading it. It's talking about how ROI needs to be considered in enterprises, and it's things like digitization strategy often costs a lot of money. Don't stick all of that digitization into your ROI model because it won't work. So companies need to think about their digitization strategy. They need to think about their how they're doing projects, are they doing waterfall or agile, and there's some really good insight into that. If you're interested, you can go to the ARIA website and you can download a couple of supporting documents. We've provided a AR ROI case study. It takes you through a fictitious company and goes through the kind of steps, so it gives you a bit of insight of what the more detailed stuff offers, and an abstract of the best practice report. But the ARIA members now using this to have conversations to help their processes and stuff like that. So just finally, we offer different types of membership and talked about You could be a sponsor member, which gives you a seat on the board. You could be a contributor member. That's all based on company turnover. Very keen to support non-commercial and academic members and stuff like that. And I know there's lots of startups here, so just a quick thing about the startup package. There's a few conditions, but certainly for $1,500, you get access to all of that research, which we've spent over $30,000 US in 2017. And that really, ladies and gentlemen, is it. Can I have a whoop whoop? Yeah, you're great.